remember how we had killed Anwar Al-Awlaki. He was a person who did propaganda for al-Qaeda in Yemen, basically. And President Obama's administration claimed that he had moved into an operational role. They did not provide much evidence, or really any evidence of that, because they felt that we're the government, we don't have to provide evidence. He was born in New Mexico, was a United States citizen, and he was killed in a drone strike in Yemen. Now, some reactions to that were mixed because he is a U.S. citizen and there was no due process. He was not even indicted, and he was executed. But on the other hand, he had done a lot of propaganda against the United States and in favor of al-Qaeda. So it was, muted reaction, although some vocal critics. But now we have done something that is very unfortunate. We have apparently killed his son as well, who had just turned 16 a month ago. Abdulrahman Al-Awlaki and a 17-year-old cousin were attending a barbecue, and you could very fairly say that it was not a pleasant barbecue given who was attending. The government, our government, claims that Ibrahim al-Bana, an Egyptian media chief for al-Qaeda's Yemeni affiliate, was also there. Apparently, from our gathering of the news stories, he was probably the target, although the United States government will not tell us who the actual target was. Apparently, everything is secret. We kill U.S. citizens who are teenagers, and we don't even tell the American people who the intended target was. Apparently, Fahd al-Qusso was also there. He's a senior al-Qaeda operative who was at least indicted in New York in a 2000 attack on the USS Cole in the port of Aden. And look, if they had just targeted that guy who was indicted, then I think it's a much clearer case. You say at least they brought a case against him, they could not otherwise reach him, etc. But the number of people killed is actually 9, including the 2 teenagers, including a United States citizen. So now the Al-Awlaki family, which had remained quiet throughout for understandable reasons, is going public with this. And in fact, there's even a Facebook group supporting Abdulrahman Al-Awlaki, and basically, of course, at this point, criticizing the United States government for, well, I was going to say executing him, but we're not really sure who they were executing because they won't tell us. But he, nonetheless, has been killed. And it leads to a great question. I mean, what can't our government do? And what can they keep secret? Was he the actual target? Can you at least tell us? Is that too much to ask for? And shouldn't we know whether we're executing teenagers on purpose or by accident, let alone U.S. citizen teenagers? You know that initially the United States government said that he was in his 20s and was a militant. When pressed on it, and in fact the Washington Post found his birth certificate, well, there it is. They're like, oops, yeah, I guess he wasn't in his 20s. So that leads to a good question asked by the New Yorker, which is, was our government lying about the fact that he was in his 20s, or was there evidence on him so thin and they wound up dropping a bomb on his head and killing him anyway? Now look, there's so many different problems with this. Number one problem is we don't know their real purpose. Is it possible that they wanted to kill him because he knew something about his father? Now look, I would say it is not probable, and I would say if you told me, is it likely? I would say probably not, right? Because, God, killing a kid who just turned 16, who actually was not with his father, but had gone to find his father basically at the age of 15, and then wound up at this place because of his father's associations, and winds up getting killed. I hope to God that our government did not target him, that it was an accident that he was killed, right? And that doesn't make it that much better, but that's what happened. But we don't even know because they won't state the reasons, they won't state the real target. So is it possible that he knew something about his father and we didn't want him knowing that or making that public? What has the United States government become? Look, let me give you a quote. Thomas Vitter is a spokesman for the National Security Council. He says, for over the past year, the Department of State has publicly urged U.S. citizens not to travel to Yemen and has encouraged those already in Yemen to leave because of the continuing threat of violence. But I've got to ask the spokesperson from the National Security Council, are you referring to the threat of violence from al-Qaeda or from us? This is a quote that was given after the teenager al-Awlaki was killed. Basically saying, hey, you know what, if you're in Yemen, we could drop a bomb on your head at any moment, even if you're a U.S. citizen, even if you're a teenager. And then they say, well, you should leave Yemen because of the threat of violence. Whose violence? Am I alone in thinking that this has gone beyond the bounds of reason? I mean, there you see a Facebook group obviously protesting this. Let me give you one last thing about this story. Look, in Guantanamo Bay, we had kept two teenagers, Mohammed Jawad and Omar Qatar. And we said that they were dangerous and important militants. What was our evidence to that regard? Well, of course, that also was secret and never published, never shared, but we were told to trust the government. And under the Bush administration, a lot of progressives did not trust the government. They were outraged by the secret evidences, the indefinite detentions, and then the torture of some at Guantanamo Bay, and especially in Iraq and Afghanistan and some of the prisons that we operated over there. Now, President Obama did not end the indefinite detentions. He said he would move the indefinite detentions from Guantanamo to another prison inside the U.S. That didn't happen either. Now the Republicans blocked that, but it's not like President Obama ever said he was going to stop the indefinite detentions. He just said he was going to move them. He did stop the torture, for as far as we know. That's great. But look at what we're doing now instead. Now we're not just holding teenagers, we're killing teenagers. We're not just torturing people, we're executing them. And they're not just citizens of another country, they're citizens of our country. What have we become?